The massive hospital ship USNS Mercy Aya floated silently against the backdrop of Saturn's rings, its white hull gleaming in the distant sunlight. Dr. Laura Bennett stood at the observation deck, her tired eyes fixed on the spectacular view before her. After 16 hours of back-to-back surgeries, she needed this moment of peace. The ship's public address system crackled to life. "Dr. Bennett to Emergency Bay 3. The calm voice announced. She sighed, knowing her break was over. As she walked through the spotless corridors, her footsteps echoed against the metal floors. The USNS Mercy Aya was Earth's pride, a floating city of healing among the stars. Captain Peter Wright watched from the bridge as a small transport ship approached their docking bay. More patients from the Saturn mining colonies were arriving. He checked the manifest on his tablet. 3 cases of radiation exposure, 2 mining accidents, and 1 urgent heart condition. The hospital ship never turned away those in need. "Captain, all systems are running at optimal levels," reported his bridge officer. "Engineering confirms the new medical nanite production is exceeding expectations." Wright nodded, his expression serious. The ship carried more than just medical supplies. It carried hope to the furthest reaches of human space. At nearly 2 kilometers long, the Mercy Eye could treat thousands of patients at once, with technology that would have seemed like magic just a few decades ago. In Emergency Bay 3, Nurse Kevin Martinez was already preparing for the incoming patients. His skilled hands moved quickly, setting up the diagnostic beds and checking the medical scanners. He had been working on the Mercy Eye for 5 years, and still, the ship's capabilities amazed him. "Kevin, start with the radiation cases," Dr. Bennett ordered as she entered the bay. "I'll handle the cardiac patient." Her voice was firm but kind, the voice of someone used to making quick decisions that saved lives. The first patients arrived within minutes. The mining accident victims came first. 2 tough-looking men with plasma burns and crushed limbs. The medical teams moved with practiced efficiency, floating gurneys gliding smoothly through the air on magnetic fields. "Vital signs stable," Kevin announced as he treated the radiation patients. The ship's advanced systems were already at work, cleaning their bodies of dangerous particles at the cellular level. What would have been a death sentence 50 years ago was now routine treatment. Dr. Bennett focused on her cardiac patient, a young woman from the Europa colonies who had developed complications from the low-gravity environment. The doctor's fingers danced across the holographic controls, directing swarms of microscopic robots to repair damaged heart tissue. "Captain Wright," Laura spoke into her comm unit while working, "could you adjust our orbit? The gravity in Bay 3 is slightly off calibration for cardiac procedures." Up on the bridge, Wright gave the order. The massive ship responded with grace, its engines firing silently to shift position. The adjustment was minor, but in medical procedures, every detail mattered. As the day cycle continued, more patients arrived. The Mercy Eye was never quiet, but that's how they liked it. Every busy moment meant more lives being saved, more families being kept whole. Dr. Bennett finished her cardiac procedure and stepped back, watching as the patient's vital signs stabilized. Another life saved. She looked around the emergency bay, taking in the scene of humans helping humans among the stars. Medical staff moved purposefully between beds, advanced machinery hummed softly, and through the bay's large windows, Saturn's rings provided a majestic backdrop. Kevin approached her with a fresh cup of coffee. "Long day," he said, handing her the drink. "But a good one." Laura nodded, sipping the hot coffee gratefully. "Every day we can help is a good day." Neither of them could have known that this peaceful scene would soon be shattered. That the Mercy Eye, symbol of humanity's compassion among the stars, would become the center of a conflict that would show the galaxy another side of humanity entirely. For now, though, the ship continued its vital work, floating serenely in space, a beacon of hope and healing in the vast darkness between the stars. The first sign of the Charaxian ships came as a series of unusual readings on the Mercy Aya's long-range scanners. They appeared as 5 bright dots, moving with purpose toward the hospital ship's position near Saturn. Dr. Laura Bennett was reviewing patient files when the alert came through. All senior staff to the command center. Captain Wright's voice echoed through the ship's communication system. His tone was controlled but carried an edge of urgency that made Laura's heart beat faster. In the command center, the wall-sized display showed the approaching vessels. They were unlike anything Laura had seen before. Sleek, dark purple ships that seemed to absorb the light around them. Each one was at least 3 times the size of the Mercy Aya. "First contact," Kevin whispered, standing beside Laura. The room was filled with a tense silence as they watched the alien ships draw closer. Ambassador Alice Carter arrived on the bridge via emergency shuttle just minutes before the alien ships came into visual range. She smoothed her diplomatic uniform and took her position at the communication station. The fate of humanity's first alien contact might rest on her shoulders. Opening all standard greeting frequencies, the communications officer announced. The room held its breath. The response came in perfect English, transmitted directly to their systems. "We are the Exaraxian Confederation," a smooth, almost musical voice declared. "We come in peace and seek to learn from your medical achievements." Ambassador Carter stepped forward. "On behalf of Earth and her colonies, we welcome you. I am Ambassador Carter, and you're approaching the USNS Mercy Eye, our primary medical vessel." The aliens requested permission to send a delegation aboard. After quick consultation with Earth Command, Captain Wright agreed. The ship's massive docking bay was prepared to receive its first alien visitors. Dr. Bennett watched from the observation deck as the alien shuttle landed. It was smaller than their emergency shuttles, but had an elegant, organic look to it. The landing party that emerged made her gasp quietly. The Exaraxians were tall, slender beings with iridescent skin that shifted colors like oil on water. "Fascinating," Kevin murmured beside her. "Their biology must be incredibly different from ours." The alien delegation, led by one they called First Speaker, toured the medical facilities. They showed particular interest in the nanite production labs and the emergency treatment bays. Their questions were specific, technical, and endless. Laura noticed something odd during the tour. Every time they passed a major system, one of the aliens would touch the walls briefly. She might have dismissed it as simple curiosity, but her instincts told her something else was happening. "Captain," she whispered into her comm unit during a brief moment alone, "I think they're scanning our systems. There's some kind of energy pulse every time they touch the ship's surfaces." "Noted," Wright replied quietly. "Keep observing. Earth Command is monitoring the situation." The tour continued, but now Laura could see she wasn't the only one who had noticed something off. Kevin kept positioning himself between the aliens and the more sensitive equipment. The security teams were more alert, their hands never far from their weapons. Ambassador Carter maintained her diplomatic smile, but her eyes had taken on a worried look. The Exaraxians' questions had become more probing, less diplomatic. They seemed particularly interested in how humans had developed such advanced medical technology so quickly. As the day progressed, more alien shuttles requested permission to dock, each carrying teams of what they called medical observers. The Mercy Eye's corridors began to fill with the tall, shimming forms of the Exaraxians. "This doesn't feel right," Kevin said quietly to Laura as they watched another group of aliens examine the nanite production facility. "They're not here to learn. They're cataloging everything we have." Laura nodded slowly, watching as one of the aliens placed its hand against yet another wall. She thought about all the patients currently under their care, about the thousands of lives that depended on this ship. Something was coming. She could feel it in her bones. Up in the bridge, Captain Wright was reaching the same conclusion. He sent a coded message to Earth Command. "Possible situation developing. Request immediate support." The response was immediate. "Support vessels dispatched. Maintain diplomatic protocols but be prepared." The peaceful routine of the hospital ship had been shattered, replaced by a growing tension that everyone could feel, but no one could openly acknowledge. Humanity's first contact was balanced on a knife's edge, and the Mercy Aya was at the center of it all. The Xeraxians showed their true colors during the night shift. Dr. Laura Bennett was checking on a young patient when the ship's lights suddenly turned red. The emergency alert system began to sound, its low pulse beating like a worried heart. "This is Captain Wright." The announcement system crackled. "All staff begin emergency evacuation procedures. This is not a drill." Repeat, "This is not a drill." Through the large windows of the medical bay, Laura watched as the alien ships moved into attack positions around the Mercy II. Their sleek purple hulls now bristled with weapons that had been hidden before. Primitive species have no right to such advanced medical technology. The Xeraxian first speaker's voice boomed through the ship's communication system. "Your rapid development is unnatural. We will take control of this vessel for the good of the galaxy." Kevin rushed into the ward, already pushing a floating stretcher. "We need to move the critical patients first," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos. "The escape pods are ready in Section C." Laura nodded, her training taking over. "Start with the radiation treatment patients. They're the most vulnerable." She turned to her medical team. "Remember your evacuation training. Calm and quick wins the race." The hospital ship's corridors filled with organized movement as medical staff began moving patients. Some of the less critical patients helped others, showing the best of humanity in a crisis. Through the windows, Laura could see Xeraxian boarding craft approaching. The ship's automated defense systems were active now, creating force fields around critical areas. Captain Wright had ordered all security teams to protect the evacuation routes. "Dr. Bennett." Ambassador Carter appeared, her diplomatic uniform now wrinkled. "They're trying to download our medical database. They think we stole this technology from some advanced race. They won't believe we developed it ourselves." An explosion rocked the ship. The Xeraxians had started cutting through the outer hull in less defended areas. Laura could hear the fighting starting in distant corridors. "Kevin, get that group of patients to the escape pods," Laura ordered, helping an elderly patient onto a stretcher. "I need to secure the research data and samples from Lab 7. The ship shuddered again. Through her comm unit, she could hear Captain Wright coordinating with security teams. The Mercy II might be a hospital ship, but it wasn't defenseless. Laura ran through the corridors toward the research lab, passing groups of staff and patients heading for safety. The research lab contained years of medical breakthroughs. She couldn't let it fall into hostile hands. She reached the lab just as a group of Xeraxians cut through a nearby wall. Their iridescent skin now glowed with an angry red color. Laura quickly pressed her hand against the lab's security panel, beginning the emergency deletion protocol. "Stop," one of the aliens commanded, pointing a strange weapon at her. "Step away from the console." Laura stood her ground. "This is a hospital ship. We help people. That's all we've ever done." She kept her hand on the panel, watching the deletion progress bar move forward. The alien moved closer. "Your species is too young for such power. The ability to heal should belong to the more advanced races." A sudden burst of energy from the ceiling knocked the aliens back. The ship's internal defense systems had activated. Laura used the moment to finish the deletion sequence and grab a small case of emergency medical supplies. "Dr. Bennett," Kevin's voice came through her comm unit. "We've evacuated most of the critical patients. Where are you?" "Lab 7. Had to protect the research." Laura started running back toward the evacuation zone. "On my way now." She could hear the Xeraxians recovering behind her, but she didn't look back. The ship's defensive systems would slow them down. Through the windows, she could see more alien ships arriving, surrounding the Mercy II like hungry predators. But in the distance, she saw something else, the first hints of approaching ships from Earth. Help was coming. They just had to hold out long enough. Captain Wright's voice came over the comm system again. "All non-essential personnel proceed to evacuation points. Security teams to designated positions. The Earth Defense Fleet is on its way." We will not let them take this ship. Admiral John Cooper stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Fleet's flagship as it raced through space. The massive view screen showed their target, the USNS Mercy II, now surrounded by hostile alien vessels. His face grew hard as he watched the Exaraxian ships firing on the hospital ship. "All ships, battle formation Delta," he commanded. "Remember, we have civilians to protect. The Mercy II is still evacuating patients." The Earth fleet emerged from their faster-than-light jump in perfect formation. 30 ships of various sizes appeared around the Exaraxian fleet like avenging angels. Among them was the U.S. Nighthawk, Earth's newest stealth destroyer, its black hull almost invisible against the darkness of space. Back on the Mercy II, Captain Wright watched the arrival of Earth's ships with relief. He had been coordinating the ship's defenses from the bridge, using every trick he knew to protect his people. "Sir," his tactical officer called out, "Admiral Cooper is requesting ship status." "Tell him we still have 300 patients aboard," Wright replied. "We need 10 more minutes to complete the evacuation." Dr. Laura Bennett and Kevin worked quickly in the lower decks, helping the last group of patients into escape pods. They could feel the vibrations as Earth's ships engaged the Exaraxians in battle. "Last critical patient secured," Kevin reported, closing an escape pod hatch. The pod launched immediately, carrying its precious cargo to safety. Laura looked out a nearby window. The sight took her breath away. Earth's ships were performing a complex dance around the Mercy II, their weapons blazing as they kept the aliens at bay. The U.S. Nighthawk seemed to appear and disappear at will, striking the Exaraxian ships from unexpected angles. "This is Admiral Cooper to all Earth vessels," the command channel announced. "Defensive formation around the Mercy II. Show these aliens what happens when they attack a hospital ship." The Earth ships moved with precision that surprised the Exaraxians. These weren't the actions of a primitive species. The Admiral had positioned his fleet to create a protective shield around the hospital ship while still maintaining clear firing lines. "Captain Wright," Laura called through her comm unit as she and Kevin ran toward the bridge. "We've finished the evacuation of all critical care patients. Only essential medical staff remain aboard." "Understood, Doctor," Wright replied. "Get to emergency stations. We're not done yet." The Exaraxians had not expected such resistance. Their ships began to take damage as Earth's fleet demonstrated combat techniques they had never seen before. The U.S. Nighthawk was particularly effective, using its stealth technology to strike and vanish before the aliens could respond. Admiral Cooper watched the battle unfold with careful eyes. "Launch fighters," he ordered. "Show them what Earth can do." Squadrons of small, fast fighter ships poured from the Earth vessels. They moved in perfect coordination, their pilots demonstrating years of training. The Exaraxians found themselves overwhelmed by these smaller craft that their sensors could barely track. On the Mercy I's bridge, Laura and Kevin arrived to find Captain Wright coordinating with the Earth fleet. The ship's defensive systems were proving more capable than anyone had expected, its shield holding against Exaraxian weapons. "Sir," the tactical officer called out, "the Exaraxians are trying to regroup. They're pulling back to protect their command ship." Admiral Cooper saw the same thing from his flagship. "They thought we would be easy prey," he said to his bridge crew. "They thought attacking the hospital ship was safe. Time to prove them wrong." The Earth fleet pressed their advantage, their formations tightening around the alien ships. The U.S. Nighthawk appeared directly behind the Exaraxian command vessel, its weapons powering up. Through it all, the Mercy I stood firm, its white hull still gleaming despite the battle damage. It was no longer just a hospital ship. It had become a symbol of humanity's resolve. The Exaraxians had thought they were attacking a defenseless target. Instead, they had awakened the sleeping giant, and Earth's response was just beginning. Lieutenant Susan Mitchell pushed her fighter craft into a tight spin, avoiding enemy fire while leading her squadron through the chaos of battle. Below her, the massive white form of the Mercy I glowed against the backdrop of Saturn's rings. "Eagle Squadron, form up on my wing," she ordered, watching as her pilots fell into perfect formation. "We need to keep them away from the hospital ship's port side. They're still moving patients through those evacuation routes." In the Mercy Aya's medical bay, Dr. Laura Bennett worked quickly with Kevin to convert their remaining medical supplies into unexpected defensive tools. They had discovered that their sterilization fields could interfere with Exaraxian equipment. "Their body structure reacts to our basic medical scanners," Laura explained to Captain Wright through the comm system. "If we boost the power, we might be able to create a defense against boarding parties." Wright's voice came back tense but hopeful. "Do it. They're still trying to cut through Hull Section 8. Outside, the battle had transformed the quiet space around Saturn into a light show of weapons fire and exploding engines. The Earth fleet moved with unexpected grace, their formation shifting and adapting as they protected the hospital ship. The U.S. Nighthawk appeared suddenly beside Exaraxian cruiser, its stealth systems making it seem to materialize from nowhere. The alien ship tried to turn, but it was too late. The Nighthawk's main guns fired, sending pulses of energy through the enemy shields. "Multiple hostile boarding craft approaching," the Mercy Aya's defense system announced. Laura and Kevin watched from the medical bay windows as the small purple ships tried to reach their hull. "Activating modified sterilization field," Kevin said, his fingers moving across the medical control panel. The air around the hospital ship shimmed with a pale blue light. The effect was immediate. The approaching Xeraxian boarding craft began to drift off course, their systems disrupted by the modified medical equipment. Inside the ships, the aliens found their own biotechnology failing to respond. Lieutenant Mitchell saw the opportunity. "Eagle Squadron, take out those drifting boarding craft. Clean shots only. No debris to fall back on the Mercy Aya." Her pilots responded with precision, their smaller ships darting between the disabled alien craft. Each shot was careful, pushing the destroyed vessels away from the hospital ship. On the Mercy Aya's bridge, Captain Wright received a transmission from Admiral Cooper. "The Xeraxians are pulling back from sections 3 through 7. Whatever you're doing with those medical systems, keep it up." Laura and Kevin had turned their entire deck into a makeshift defense center. Medical scanners, usually used to detect cancer cells, now searched for weak points in alien shields. Tissue regenerators were modified to disrupt the strange biological components of Exaraxian technology. "They thought we were primitive," Kevin said, watching another boarding craft drift helplessly away from the ship. "They never considered that our medical technology could be used like this." Above them, Lieutenant Mitchell's squadron continued their protective dance. The Exaraxian ships found themselves caught between the Earth fleet's military might and the hospital ship's surprisingly effective defenses. "They're targeting our medical bay," Wright's voice warned through the comm. Laura looked up to see a larger Exaraxian ship turning toward their position. "Not today," she said, activating their strongest sterilization pulse. The beam of energy, meant to clean surgical equipment, lashed out at the alien ship. Its biomechanical systems faltered, shields flickering. The U.S. Nighthawk appeared again, using the moment of weakness to land a critical hit. The Exaraxian ship's hull cracked, forcing it to retreat. Admiral Cooper's voice came through all channels. "Earth forces, press the advantage. Show them that attacking a hospital ship was their worst mistake." The battle continued to turn. Earth's ships, once thought primitive by the Xeraxians, demonstrated combat skills born from centuries of human conflict. The hospital ship, far from being defenseless, proved that human medical technology could be just as formidable as any weapon. In the medical bay, Laura and Kevin shared a determined look. They were healers by nature, but today they would also be defenders. The Xeraxians had made a grave error in assuming that humanity's dedication to healing meant they couldn't fight. The Xeraxian flagship hung in space, its purple hull now scarred from battle damage. Inside the Mercy Aya's command center, Dr. Laura Bennett watched as Admiral Cooper's fleet moved into their final attack positions. The hospital ship's modified medical systems had turned the tide of battle, but the alien commanders still wouldn't surrender. "They're powering up their main weapons," Captain Wright announced, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. "They mean to make one final attack." Lieutenant Susan Mitchell's voice crackled through the command channel. "Eagle Squadron is in position. We can hit their weapons before they fire, but we'll need a distraction." Laura looked at the medical console in front of her, an idea forming in her mind. "Captain, what if we showed them why they should never underestimate human medical technology?" All of it. Wright understood immediately. He pressed the ship-wide comm button. "All remaining medical staff, prepare for Protocol Omega. This is not a drill." Throughout the Mercy II, medical systems began to power up. Every scanner, every treatment device, every piece of medical equipment activated at once. The ship's power core hummed as it channeled energy to all decks. "What are they doing?" The Exaraxian commander's confused voice came through their communication systems. "Their hospital ship is giving off energy readings stronger than our weapons." Kevin worked quickly at his station, redirecting power from the nanite production facilities. "Ready on your mark, Dr. Bennett. Every medical system we have is online." Laura nodded to Captain Wright. "Tell Admiral Cooper to be ready. This will only work once." The captain sent the signal. The Earth fleet began to move, creating a pattern that forced the Exaraxian ships to cluster together. The U.S. Nighthawk disappeared from view, moving into its final attack position. "Now," Laura commanded. Kevin pressed the activation sequence. Every medical system on the Mercy II fired at once. Sterilization beams, scanning rays, and modified treatment pulses combined into a massive wave of energy. The blast wasn't designed to destroy. It was designed to heal, to change, to transform. But against the Exaraxians' biomechanical technology, it was devastating. The alien ship systems began to fail as the medical energy wave washed over them. Their biological components, the living technology they depended on, started shutting down. Shields failed, weapons powered down, and navigation systems went dark. "Eagle Squadron, you have your opening," Lieutenant Mitchell called out. Her fighters swept in, targeting the flagship's weapon systems with surgical precision. The U.S. Nighthawk appeared behind the Exaraxian command ship, its weapons locked on the now vulnerable engine core. Admiral Cooper's voice rang through all channels. "Surrender now, or we will be forced to take more aggressive action." On the Mercy I's bridge, they watched as the Exaraxian ships hung powerless in space. Their mighty fleet, which had thought to easily capture a human hospital ship, had been defeated by the very medical technology they had dismissed as primitive. "This is impossible." The Exaraxian commander's voice was filled with disbelief. "How could medical equipment do this?" Laura stepped forward to the communication console. "Because we designed our medical technology to adapt, to overcome any obstacle to healing. You thought that made us weak. Instead, it made us stronger than you could imagine." The Exaraxian flagship's running lights flickered, then began to pulse in a pattern that Earth's ships recognized as a surrender signal. Around it, the remaining alien vessels did the same. Kevin looked at the readings from their medical systems. The energy wave didn't cause any permanent damage to their ships. Once they power up their backup systems, they'll be able to leave. "Good," Laura said firmly. "We're healers first. Even in victory, we don't need to destroy." Admiral Cooper's fleet moved to secure the surrendering ships. The U.S. Nighthawk remained in position, its presence a quiet reminder of Earth's military power. But it was the Mercy II, its white hull still gleaming despite the battle, that had truly shown humanity's strength. Captain Wright turned to his bridge crew, pride evident in his voice. "Send word to Earth Command. The hospital ship is secure. And let them know. Humanity's medical technology just won its first space battle." 3 days after the battle, the USNS Mercy I floated near Earth's orbital stations for repairs. Dr. Laura Bennett stood at her familiar spot on the observation deck, but this time she wasn't alone. Admiral Cooper and Captain Wright stood with her, watching as repair crews worked on the ship's hull. The Azaraxians have sent formal apologies through diplomatic channels, Admiral Cooper said, his hands clasped behind his back. They've also requested permission to send some of their medical experts to learn from us, properly this time. Laura smiled at the irony. So they finally believe we developed our medical technology ourselves. They do now, Wright replied. Though I don't think they'll ever forget how that same technology brought down their fleet. Through the window, they could see the U.S. Nighthawk standing guard nearby. Lieutenant Mitchell's fighters patrolled in careful formations, their presence a reminder that Earth now stood as a recognized power in the galaxy. Kevin appeared at the door of the observation deck. Doctor, the first group of patients is ready to return. All emergency evacuees are stable and accounted for. The news brought genuine joy to Laura's face. During the chaos of battle, they had managed to save every evacuated patient. Now those same patients were coming home to the Mercy Eye to complete their treatments. The ship's repairs should be finished within a week, Wright said, checking his tablet. The damage wasn't as bad as we feared. Those medical shields you created actually protected our hull better than standard defensive systems. Earth scientists were already studying the unexpected defensive capabilities discovered during the battle. The combination of medical and military technology had opened new possibilities for protecting ships and colonies. Ambassador Carter is presenting our case to the Galactic Council today, Admiral Cooper added. She's using the Mercy Eye incident as proof that humanity deserves a seat at the table. It's hard to argue we're primitive when we've demonstrated such advanced capabilities. Laura walked to the window, placing her hand against the cool glass. Below them, Earth shone like a blue jewel. We never wanted to prove our worth through fighting. We built this ship to heal. And that's exactly what proved our worth, Kevin said, joining them. We showed the galaxy that humanity's greatest strength isn't our weapons, it's our ability to help others. Even our defensive systems were based on healing technology. The ship's communication system chimed softly. Dr. Bennett to Medical Bay 1. A familiar voice announced. The first returning patients have arrived. Laura straightened her medical coat. Back to work, she said with a smile. We're healers first, after all. Admiral Cooper nodded in approval. That's what the Xeraxians fail to understand. Humanity's dedication to healing doesn't make us weak. It shows just how strong we really are. As Laura and Kevin walked through the corridors to Medical Bay 1, they passed repair crews working alongside medical staff. The ship was coming back to life, returning to its true purpose. You know, Kevin said thoughtfully, the Xeraxians actually did us a favor. Now everyone knows not to mistake our compassion for weakness. The medical bay doors opened to reveal patients being helped back to their beds. Some were from the Saturn colonies, others from Earth's outposts. All of them were smiling, happy to be back under the care of the Mercy Eye's staff. Captain Wright's voice came over the ship's communication system. Attention all personnel. Regular medical operations will resume in all cleared sections. Welcome home, everyone. Laura looked around at her medical team, at the patients they protected, at the ship that had proved humanity's worth to the galaxy. The Mercy Eye would continue its mission, traveling through space to help those in need. But now it carried another message too, a reminder that humanity's greatest achievements came not from conquest, but from their desire to heal and protect others. Outside the medical bay windows, Earth's sun rose over the planet's curved horizon. The Mercy Eye's white hull gleamed in the light, once again a symbol of hope. But now it was more than just a hospital ship. It was proof that humanity's compassion and ingenuity could overcome any challenge the galaxy might present.